The idea of the buyer broker agreement, people are very nervous about. And I'm like, it's no different than a listing agreement for a seller. We've been doing that for decades. You just have to retrain your brain that you need an agreement no matter who you're working for, whether it's a seller or a buyer. I would also reach out if you know anyone that's always used buyer broker agreements and say, help me. How are you communicating your value? Or how do you explain the buyer broker agreement? Because I think that there are some brokerages in the state of Florida, not very many, but that have been using them for years, and we can learn from them.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest is the most important real estate professional in Florida in 2024. She is the broker owner of Matchmaker Realty in Gainesville. She is a Florida Realtors board certified professional, 2011 Gainesville Alachua Association Realtors president. She has served as the District 1 vice president and the 2017 Florida President of Women's Council of Realtors. She has dedicated her professional career to make life better for the real estate industry. Let's welcome the 2024 President of Florida's largest trade organization with nearly 250,000 members, Florida Realtors Gia Arvin, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm glad you could make it on today. I know you've been bouncing around the state and, sharing hopefully some good news, but, our challenging industry, I think, I've been in mortgages for 19 years and obviously working with agents for a majority of that. I don't know if there's any more water cooler or scuttlebutt or whatever more stuff that you could talk about right now than real estate, not only the market, but with the NAR settlement and all those things, the challenging subjects that are probably flashing in front of you guys all the time.
Yep. You know what? It's an interesting year. You never know what's going to come up the year that you're president. And wow, it's been an interesting year. But I'm very excited to be part of this and be part of the change, right? Yeah. That's really what it is.
Obviously, you have a history of being involved. You have a passion for it. And, what's better than to be president and have a nice challenge and get the word out. I think the one thing, talking to a lot of real estate agents, a lot of the top producers, they've got it under control, but a lot of the newbies or people may not be as involved, or they want to slide towards the negativity, and they need obviously great leaders like yourself to put them at ease.
Definitely. So I think that overall, realtors are in a panic because it's changing the way that we've done business for decades. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for us to really shine and show our value. And we all need to get better at telling our story and communicating. So I'm second generation realtor, and I grew up under the pretense of, you make everything look seamless and easy. Never let the customer know there's a problem. Well, you know what that did? That taught the customer that our job was easy, which we know that's not the case. That's right. So now it's a shift of saying, hey, we fixed it, but we had a problem this week. This is what the problem was, and this is how we overcame it. Because we do have to show our value now. We can't make it look seamless. So
100%. Yeah, no doubt about it. And the questions I got will lead into, because I really think that's a underlying meaning. It's been something I've been talking on the podcast about, is how are you expressing your value, whether it's through utilizing obviously the social media platforms, video, and obviously your one-on-one presentations. The top realtors like to get face-to-face, and I think part of that is building that relationship, but also looking them right in the eye and telling them, this is what I'm going to do, which gets that underlying meaning of showing them your value.
You're exactly right.
So I'm gonna touch off the show. As everyone knows, Remy Graphics have made these beautiful mugs for me, laser engraved, locally here in Northeast Florida. She can make onesies, twosies for you. If you want to put John and Sally, welcome to St. Augustine, whatever, as a closing gift, she can do that for you. But Remy Graphics, and I'm gonna put their website up there, remygraphics.com. I appreciate those mugs for us. And when you come to Florida, come to Jacksonville, Jacksonville, Gia, I'll bring you one of these, okay?
Yeah, those look awesome.
All right. I like to kick off every show to get a little background for those who don't know you personally. You go to University of Florida. Your mom already had Matchmaker Realty, right, at that time?
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So was real estate like what you were going to do, or what was your visions at that time?
No, actually, it's the total opposite. So my mother started Matchmaker Realty in 1984, but she had been a realtor since 1976. Wow. So I was literally born and raised in the industry. And I said, I never want to do real estate. So I'll be the first one to tell you, never say never, because you never know. But I graduated from the University of Florida, and I moved over to St. Augustine, actually, for 2 years. My husband...
That's what it was. I knew you were over here at one point.
Yep. Yep. My husband was at Flagler College in St. Augustine, and so I taught school at Cruikshank Elementary in St. Augustine for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that, I told my parents that I wanted to go to law school. And so I took the LSAT, applied, was going to go to University of Florida to the law school here. And my mom said, please don't do this. Please just try real estate. I think you're perfect for it. If you don't love it after 2 years, I will pay for your law school, no debt. And I said, well, how can you pass that up? Deal. So here I was, about 6 months in. I knew I was hooked. I was stuck. There was no way I was doing anything different. And so my husband joined me about 3 months later. And then we became a team, and we've been doing real estate now about 21 years.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
How was it from the standpoint, working closely with your mom? Unfortunately, I saw your bio there. Your mom passed away, and obviously you took over the brokerage a few years ago. Yeah. I mean, the opportunity, which I don't think a lot of I was able to do that as a young person, work with my dad in his business when I, pretty much through high school and in college, to be able to work closely with your mom over those years.
So I think, honestly, I got a deep perspective of the history of the industry, which I don't think a lot of people get. Now the people that come in, they don't have a longevity or a background on where our profession has been, where it is, and obviously where it's going. And so she really taught me that customer service, that personal touch. And, your name is all you have in this world, right? So you got to protect it as much as you can. And so I think that was really cool. The first day I became a realtor, she said, go down to the board and join a committee and don't come back until you do. And I said, well, why would I want to do that? I mean, I'm trying to make money here. I'm not trying to donate my time. And she said, Gia, I promise you that you will learn from it. You will grow your business and you will become a better professional. Don't come back until you join the committee. So I went down, joined professional development, and literally dove right into my volunteering with our industry immediately. And then the Women's Council of Realtors gave me my first leadership opportunity. So I joined the Women's Council about 24 hours in as well. So nothing like hitting the ground running, but I had a great example set for me, right, on how important that is to give back and be involved.
Has there ever been in the 20 plus years now you've been in the business where you haven't been on some sort of a board or committee, at any level?
No.
Yeah.
Nope. 24 hours in, I was on a committee, and I've been on a committee or been in a leadership role ever since. Part of that is a lot of my personality. Growing up, I was student council vice president, homecoming chair. That was in my DNA, I think, from the beginning. But she definitely instilled in me, you give back to the profession that gives to you, and you want to make it better for others. And so that was very cool. And my husband's the same way, right? When he joined in, he immediately got involved as well. We've both been president of our local board, both been involved at the state level, and just find true value in that. Not only does it fulfill us personally, but I feel like certain people are made to serve others and serve the industry. And so it is our turn to step up, and it is our turn to give back, because someone's got to, right? And you want someone with a true experience, like people that are really selling and people that are living the life every day in the trenches.
Well, a couple of things to spin off, because I'm actually jumping ahead of my questions, but since we're on the subject of the serving, you're a young real estate agent, young person, young real estate agent together. And then, you're fortunate to have your mom to go, but, she kicks you quickly out of the nest and says, go down to the board. But I think back to interviewing Patty Ketchum, and she says one thing that she regrets is she went years before, as she quote her, did not cast a shadow in the doorway of the board for the longest time. And, she regrets that. Of course, she's obviously made that up over the years, but where you jumped right in, the networking with the other agents, and not all the agents that go down to the, there's a lot of agents who are not, huge producers, but to be part of it, to understand real estate on a greater scale. I mean, like you mentioned just a few minutes ago, understanding the history of real estate and how it's evolved, especially in your local area and so forth. You can only really get that if your mom was doing it, or you go down to the board and you talk to some of those agents who have been there and they're at different cycles of their careers.
Yep, for sure. I tell all of my new agents now, I tell them, number one, I want you to get involved in some sort of nonprofit, something that you're passionate about, to give back to the community, because people don't care about how much you know till they know how much you care, right? So make that a genuine interest for you. Don't do something just to get leads. Go there because you have a genuine interest in that cause. But number two, get involved with the board, because again, the insights, I hear things coming down the pipeline before anyone else, even before I was state president. Why? Because I was in tune and in touch with my local board. My local AE and my local president always kept us in the loop. So I always felt like I had a jump start of anything coming down the pike in our profession, which I think is one of the huge advantages for sure. Obviously, the referrals too that you get statewide by being on all these committees and being involved. When I think of Tampa, I have an agent in my head I think of. When I think of Boca Raton, same thing, Miami. And so I built those relationships as well to develop a referral network.
Kind of hearing what's coming down the pipeline, and then you have control of how that narrative is going to get across, because I think, as we'll get into it deep here, there's a lot of, negative scuttlebutt going on, and then you and, the other committee members are there to filter it, right, and get out the proper message and how that's going across. And then the importance of, if you're not satisfied the way, the education courses are, or the instructors that are coming in, or the things at the board, you can be involved. And I think you mentioned something, specifically, not everyone wants to be involved at the level that you have been involved, but you need to support, you need to be, connected. As someone in your offices, support them. And I think that leads to the importance of RPAC in that. Can you touch a little bit, obviously at your level, I was just saying, we don't want an infomercial, but right now, to me, National Association, Florida Realtor being the largest realtor organization in the country, I mean, it's important. We've got to get in there and influence the way this settlement is going the best way we can from our position. Would you agree?
Absolutely. So when you're talking about RPAC, we've had so many wins that are important. So for, the people listening, and maybe you even done one, but Hometown Heroes. So the down payment assistance program, that was really birthed out of realtors. So we have think tanks at the state level, and we talked about how can we really move the needle when it comes to affordable housing, down payment assistance. So out of one of those think tanks came the idea of the Hometown Heroes housing program. And so with that, we've already been able to help 15,000 first-time homebuyers. So what a huge reward to see our direct advocacy efforts helping a Floridian be a first-time home buyer in our state. So that's just like one of the ways. Then insurance, insurance is one of the major issues that we have going on right now. We've been really pushing for insurance reform, and we're now starting to see the fruits of that labor. There was a special session in December 2022 that repealed one-way attorney's fees and assignment of benefits. And with that being said, we've been able to move the needle on insurance rates. So we brought about 8 new carriers back to the state of Florida. We've been able to depop citizens from about 1.7 million to 1.2 million policies, all creating more competitive nature so that we can hopefully reduce those rates. We're seeing rates stabilizing and a few decreases overall in rates right now. So that is all directly because of RPAC. Now, when you talk about the settlement and, basically looking at that narrative, Florida is at a unique position because we are the largest trade organization. We're also a transaction broker state, which is different than a lot of other states. So when we're looking at buyer broker agreements and things like that, that is a fundamental change in the way that we do business overall. Other states have already been functioning in that capacity. So we are learning from other states. We are learning from people that already function with buyer broker agreements within our own state so that we can develop the right courses, materials, updated forms, so we can make sure that every Florida realtor has the tools and resources they need to stay successful. It's definitely a process. We were hoping to have forms out by May 31st. We are waiting. It's going to be probably middle of June when our updated forms are released. And then we're going to start an intensive training program, because that is the number one thing that we can do is communicate and educate every realtor right now so they have no fear of the future, right? Realtors right now, I think, are unsettled because they don't have a clear understanding of what's expected and what the changes are going to be. But we're hoping to take that mystery out of it and really be their support system through this change.
Right. Right. No doubt. We kind of, it always happens. I have a list of questions, and just in conversation, we jump from question 3 to 7 to 13. So since we're on the RPAC topics, we as you mentioned, my question was, what are the things, because I know you guys were in DC not too long ago as well. In Tallahassee, I would imagine, insurance is being on the, top of that, because it is becoming an affordability issue. I put out a LinkedIn article, something Cindy Hayden said when I was talking with her about insurance, and putting that, just a statement up there about insurance. Besides insurance, I think people need to understand, I don't think the agents, I don't know if undervalue is not really, maybe they just don't fully understand. And I'm sure you have the statistics on how many actually are contributing something to RPAC, but it's their industry. And you're the only trade organization in the state currently, Florida Realtors, and you guys are going to bat for them on a daily basis. You're in the ears of these legislators and the governor and so forth. Tell us some of the things that maybe some other topics we haven't talked about yet that are at Tallahassee, but also in DC as well.
One other thing in Tallahassee is the business rent tax, which I think is huge, not only for our commercial practitioners, but also our residential, because really commercial, you can't have residential and commercial without each other. They're intertwined, right? We've been able to get a reduction of the business rent tax all the way down to 2%, and we are not done yet. We're going to continue to hopefully reduce that to 0. And that's a huge benefit. We fought for water quality and restoration projects. So again, when you think of Florida, why do people move to Florida? Because of our weather and our beautiful water. So we have to ensure that we have clean water throughout our state and really protect that. So $1.2 billion, that was huge. Everything from the Panhandle all the way down to Okeechobee and the Everglades. Huge win for that. We had unlicensed real estate activity going on. Again, we want to protect our profession and make sure that people are using professionals, right? And so we had $500,000 to combat unlicensed real estate activity. So again, always making sure that we're at the forefront. Right now is actually a huge topic for us. Is Senate Bill 280, which is the vacation rental bill. We have an ongoing call for action right now to the governor where we're trying to get him to veto that bill, because it will limit the amount of rental activity, number of people per bedroom, as well as a lot of fees associated with licensing and having the requirements allowed to be a vacation rental. Really worried about private property.
That would kind of supersede, because obviously we know our PUDs, Planned Urban Developments, our HOAs already have, something that they don't allow. But in areas where people can short-term rent, or they're not necessarily governed by an HOA or a CDD or something of that nature, this would be kind of a blanket over the whole state?
Yeah, basically they want them to have a license or a fee associated with becoming a vacation rental, so a registration process. So that could be an issue. It also could limit the number of residents you can have per bedroom. And, people come down to go to Disney. They're bringing a couple families. They're renting a big house. Yeah. You don't want to limit things like that. And I come from a college town, so we've always had those issues, even for long-term rentals, right? But I think it's really important that we don't blend the lines of infringing on someone's private property rights. So we are urging, there's a lot of things in the bill we we liked, but there were things we had major concerns with. So we're hoping to veto that bill so that next session we can come back with something that's a little bit more equitable, a little more, terms that make sense for all parties.
You make a good point, and having been in these type of leadership positions and being at, one of the highest positions you can be in real estate, board as president of Florida Realtors. A lot of people may think, oh, that's great, they're restricting the amount of people because I don't want someone to come in here and they got 10 people in a room. But you have to watch when you write the law, and not only real estate law, any law, you have to think through the process. One, I think the going joke is, I heard there was laughter in the room in D.C. when they said, well, who's going to enforce the new things for the NAR settlement? But what you're talking about, it may sound good on the surface, but when you really dig into that bill, a lot of people don't truly think through. And it's leadership like you that obviously read those lines, read between the lines, and said, hold on a second, this is really not going to flow very well.
So I'd love to take all of the credit, but we have an amazing team in Tallahassee. We have an advocacy team that looks at, there's a couple thousand bills every session, and they're tracking 200 or 300 that really affect our industry every session. Mm-hmm. And they come to us and they say, hey, you direct us, but we're pretty sure that this is going to be a huge impact on our industry. How do you want us to move forward? And we have lobbyists that are just wonderful. They allow us to sell real estate with confidence all over the state, and they're worrying about what policies and laws are coming down that affect our profession. So again, another reason that RPAC is so important. Without RPAC dollars, we don't have that voice, right, that support, and that force in Tallahassee and in DC. Right? RPAC really is our main driver. We're an advocacy and professional organization, right? But homeownership is the American dream, but it's also one of those things that we can't afford to lose. And so anything that infringes on that possibility or the ease of becoming a homeowner, we're opposed. So when it comes to RPAC, we are bipartisan. We are not on either party line. It starts and stops with what makes sense for homeownership. Right. And that's honestly, we don't blend any lines. It's all about homeownership, private property rights, and what makes sense for the homeowners. Yeah.
We don't think on a daily basis how much homeownership, the real estate industry in general, new construction housing and so forth, has an effect on our economy.
Yeah.
It's a big part of our gross. I just wrote ethics down because something came to mind, the importance of Florida Realtors, the way you do business. You don't, as average real estate agent, doesn't have to be a member of NAR to work. And the importance that real estate agents need to know, that course that they have to take every, the ethics course is required, right? That's the course. It's always full. If you want to sponsor a breakfast, go sponsor an ethics course one. You get to be in front of a lot of real estate agents.
Absolutely right.
But the importance of setting those standards that everyone agrees to, that this is how we're going to do business. Because I've talked to people in other countries or whatever. I mean, they could have 3 different salespersons signs in the front yard, and just the daily things that I think we mentioned very early in our discussion. Some of these things we've taken for granted and weren't really talking about. That's below the surface. Well, part of that is the importance of Florida Realtors and your local boards, the setting the ethical standards of this is how we're going to play a fair game, but this is how the game is played, so everyone's on the same surface.
Yeah, absolutely. Realtors, why is being a realtor so important? It is because of our code of ethics, right? We are held to a higher standard. And, this is the largest purchase of most people's lives. Buying a home is the largest investment they're ever going to make, and it creates generational wealth. There's so many things that homeownership does. Yeah. But what we as professionals have to say is we are assisting these families in creating this dream for their family. The number one thing that we can do is make sure that we're honest and fair with all parties, acting on the good of all members in the transaction, dealing honestly and fairly. And so as realtors, we abide by a code of ethics, and we know when we're dealing with another realtor, they understand the intricacies of that and respect the profession and all parties involved. I think that we have a lot of licensees in the state of Florida that aren't realtors. Why is that? It could be a few things, right? Maybe they don't truly practice real estate on a daily basis. Maybe they work specifically for a franchise or for like a commercial brokerage that just does scouting, that they hold a real estate license. There's lots of different reasons, but I think that the realtors, especially the residential realtors that are truly invested in our profession, recognize and see the value of wearing the realtor R and carrying that brand as part of their business. Across the country, I think the realtors are the ones that truly stack up when it comes to the education, right? We value education, the designations that are recognized by NAR. If you're not a member, you're not having those additional designations in education. So that's a huge importance as a consumer when you're looking at someone to represent you through a real estate transaction. Don't you want someone that is the best of the best, that has kept up on their education and continued to push themselves to be a better professional? And I think the Realtor brand does that.
Yep. I think it's in, we were talking about the importance of, agents have to express their value in one way, shape, or form or another. And I think you just hit on, that's one way they need to express themselves, is to show that they are, part of my industry is continuing ed, and I do more than just the minimal. I'm going out and getting these designations because I want to be the most knowledgeable representative you could have, which is part of the value prospect. You have one of your goals for 24 was to get more or encourage more people to get board certified, as you are a board certified professional realtor.
Yes.
I guess that's the title. What is that? What's it take to get there? Why should all agents be working towards that direction?
As realtors, we always say that we want to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We were hoping to raise the bar as far as the entry level to obtain a real estate license in the state of Florida. But we realized that that probably was not in the cards for the foreseeable future. And so we said, what can we do to distinguish ourselves, the folks that truly value that next tier service, that next tier education? So Florida Realtors developed a program 2 years ago called the Board Certified Real Estate Professional. You say, well, you have designations, why board certified? But CRS, GRI, PMN, SFR, AHWD, that doesn't mean anything to the consumer, right? That's alphabet soup. Yeah. We get it, but the consumer has no idea what those things mean. Right. But board certified means something to the consumer. When you think of board certified, a board certified surgeon, a board certified, right? Mm-hmm. So that is a coined term. So we decided to develop this program where you have to get surveys from your customers, surveys from fellow realtors. You have to fill out a contract based on a scenario. You have to walk your way through a code of ethics scenario and find out, what should you have done? What could you have done differently? You have a peer interview by 5 or 6. Actually, Patty Ketchum, I think, was in my peer interview. Mm-hmm. She was one of the people that interviewed me to ensure that I have the qualities of that next level professional. There's a menu of items that you have to complete. Some, you don't have to do all of them. Like if you've gotten a designation in the last 2 years, maybe you have to do a little less on this category. So there's different criteria that you have to meet. And then you apply for it, and not everyone gets it that applies for it. This will be our second full year. So this was a program that was just released. Mm-hmm. We only had 20 total in the state the first year, board certified real estate professionals. Why? It's a new program and it is hard to get. This is not something that's fill out your form and turn it in and you're qualified. This is a true deep dive into qualifications and you proving your worth as a board certified professional. We're excited. This year, we don't know how many are going to be in our second class yet. We are taking applications right now, and then they'll be doing interviews throughout the summer, and we'll be inducting that new class at our August meetings. But this was Florida Realtors' way to say, we care about the level of professionalism and the level of service we're providing to homeowners across Florida. What can we do to stand apart and give you that opportunity? Once we figured out that the bar of entry would always stay the same, at least for the foreseeable future, we wanted to have a next level opportunity for our members. Again, distinguishing that difference.
Would you, obviously someone in their first year, that's not someone but someone who has 3, 5, 7 years in the business, where do you think is there some sort of qualification that they've done so many transactions to get on there? When do you recommend that someone should, if you've been in the business X amount of years, you should consider?
I think 5 is a good year mark. I think if you've been in 5 years, there is a very good chance that you've met the number of requirements as far as transactions. You have enough positive reviews from your consumers and fellow agents. You've been exposed to committee work, possibly county or city commission meetings. You've been in the crux for long enough that I think that there's a very good chance you will qualify. Something that's, if you're brand new, I tell you to go ahead and look at your GRI, Graduate Realtor Institute. Why is that? Because GRI can also satisfy for your first license renewal, your 45 hours. So if you obtain the GRI, that's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone and getting a designation. Another thing you could look at is C2EX. This was the National Association of Realtors' next level opportunity for realtors to continue to develop their training and hone their skills. And so it's an online program, a little less rigorous as far as the requirements. But if you're willing to spend 45 minutes to an hour a week on these online scenarios, you could probably get your C2EX in a few months. And that's a huge certification that you can say that you have from the National Association of Realtors. So I would say if you're newer than 5 years, look at those 2 as great opportunities. After 5 years, board certified professional for sure. CRS, certified residential specialist, is a great opportunity. Right now at the state level, because of all of the changes within the lawsuits and everything going on, we have a focus on ABR, which is accredited buyer representative. Right. So the ABR class, as well as the buyer broker agreement classes, are offered for free right now across the state in a lot of areas. So definitely look at that no matter where you are in your career. I would say that those 2 classes are powerful right now to make sure that you have the skills you need to be ready for the changes.
So board certified was one of the goals that you had listed there. I'm not going to go down through the details, but obviously with the, I would imagine the NAR proposed settlement, and use the word scuttlebutt, everyone's hearing these opinions, has probably, my estimation, you can correct me, my assumption would be maybe has distracted you from some of your goals. Where do you feel as president of Florida Realtors, where do you feel as far as, accomplishing the goals you set forth here on the website? Where are you at? Where are some that you feel you might be ahead of, and some that maybe trailing that in the next 6 months you want to get caught up? At the end of 24, you could say you scored well on your goal list.
So I feel really lucky. We have a 5-person leadership team, right? So secretary, treasurer, vice president, president-elect, and then president. One thing that we as a team really set forward is, yes, these might be my goals, but anything that's not finished, we all want these same goals as a team. So they're going to be finished out next year. So like Forewarn, that was a huge one of my goals that actually got accomplished in 2023. Forewarn is an app that we made free for every Florida Realtor member across the entire state. It's a safety app, but we were able to check that box in 2023. So that was huge. I will say, yes, I feel like our focus has had to be on the forms, the changes, the most critical infrastructure that we need to put in place to ensure that every realtor has confidence moving forward. But we have an amazing staff at Florida Realtors, and they've really carried the water on a lot of other things that we wanted to accomplish, that maybe the leadership team and I and the forms committee maybe are focused on forms and changes, but other parts of our organization kind of picked up the water on a lot of other things. So board certified realtor, we'll see what we end up as far as the new class, but we've definitely been promoting that across the state at all of our district conferences. And then we've also been having what we call the Homegrown Advocacy Tour, basically taking Tallahassee and our advocacy efforts and RPAC to every district across the entire states. We have one left to go on Tuesday, but at the end of Tuesday, we will have done 15 of those across the state, bringing advocacy home. So we also, the buyer broker agreement, we talked about that, and ABR, we've made that free across the state for most members. So again, trying to push that education to get people ready. And that was another goal we had. We expanded our commercial touch. So we now have a presence at ICSC, which is Commercial Conference for Shopping Centers in Orlando. And so we have a booth there as Florida Realtors, really pushing and promoting our commercial practitioners because we really wanted to expand our footprint for our commercial world. Advocacy, we had a huge year, right? From water quality to insurance to hometown heroes. So that was awesome. Condo reform. So HOA, there's a bunch of...
Good topic.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
You know, so since the collapse of Surfside, there's been measures put into place that we don't have another crisis like that again. But one of the biggest issues for realtors across the state was access to documents, right? So those rules and regulations, those budgets, now we have rules put in place, so there will be access. They are going to be required to be on a website, accessible. So that was a huge win for us as far as access to documentation. And then water quality and environmental funding. Again, we had $1.2 billion awarded to that. So we feel very good. Florida Realtors has a waterway cleanup month, the whole month of July, where we promote waterway cleanup. And actually your area, NEFAR, they have an amazing event, several events within that waterway cleanup. So we've been able to push and accomplish that goal as well. And inclusion. So my three big goals were professionalism, advocacy, and inclusion. And I feel like we've done a really good job. There's going to be certain things like board certified is going to be ongoing. Every officer after me is going to have to promote that because it's a baby, right? It was a pilot program. It's only in our second year. So that's going to have to be a commitment. And then getting the agents ready for our changing climate. I would like to say that we've kicked that off very strong, but that's also going to be a commitment to years to come. One of the things I would love to accomplish, but unfortunately I knew given the makeup of what was happening, it was probably unlikely, but I believe the rest of the team will continue to push for it, is some sort of group health insurance for realtors. We've seen other states accomplish something good, not perfect, but we're working on that in Florida. And I hope that over the next few years that will come to fruition because that is a huge concern for a lot of our membership, me included, right? My husband and I are both realtors, so we pay out of pocket every month for the two of us and our daughter. So.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, it's nearly 250,000 people there in a pool, and that's what insurance companies want. They want a pool, right? They want statistics. Yeah. Well, here we got 250,000 families involved there. This is a semi-personal question, but just looking, your experience in being involved. Like you said, you've been involved and been on some committee at some level, almost from day one. That you've been in the industry thanks to your mom, taking this important role as president in 2024. I imagine you had to look back to your role in the different boards and the different things you're accomplishing, and how you work with the other board members, because there are a lot of other ideas. Other people think things are important. When you sit down and as president of a very important organization, and like I said, the largest trade organization in Florida, largest realtor organization in the country, you're the point person. Of all those things you learned from all those committees, what are a couple of things when you go and you're having your meetings and discussing these different topics and what's important? What is the mindset you have going into that? Because you've got a long history, a long experience there, and now you're at the highest level. I guess the only position higher than where you're at is being president of NAR, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know, maybe there's something in between, right? But what is your mindset? What have you learned from those previous experiences that you brought here to Florida Realtor?
So I think the first thing is anytime you have to go in with the mindset of nothing's off the table. So you can't come in with a preconceived idea of how you think it should work or what you expect to happen. Because one thing I've learned is you're not the master of everything, right? So you have your specialty. Like I'm very good at communications, very good at advocacy, residential real estate. I would say those are my superpowers. But every member of my team has a different superpower that I don't have. And although, yes, I may be president, but you don't always have to be the chief, right? So sometimes a topic will come up and the first thing I'll say is, this is outside of my wheelhouse. Tim, this is in your wheelhouse. You need to take the lead on this and help us figure out where we need to go from here. So I think coming in with no preconceived notions and being open to everyone's ideas. Number two, knowing if that's not your strength, and that's okay to say that and let someone else take the lead on that particular subject is key. And then number three, what is going to affect the majority of our membership? When I look at our membership, I don't say we have 242,000 realtors. I look at it as 242,000 individual businesses. And every decision we make affect the way that they do business and how they can be profitable. And we don't take that responsibility lightly. That's a huge weight. And I think about this with the changes and the settlement and making sure that we have crystal clear information to make sure that every realtor is empowered and continuing to be profitable and ready for this change. It's a huge weight, right? When you think about things. So I think that those three factors, when you come into every decision, is key in order to make the right decision for the majority of our members. No matter what you do, you're not going to make every single member happy, but you hope that you've made the right decision for the right reason for the most amount of people possible.
Right. Right. I was just thinking about the insurance part of it, and this is going to lead to this next question I have. I don't even know if this is something that's discussed. I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't know, and been in the leadership circles that you have. But obviously, I imagine the insurance company is looking at turnover. We know 80-something% are out, in their first 2 years. How do you think, or is this even discussed at any level? How can we retain? Now, obviously, a lot of people get in for different reasons and they're not really passionate for it. So if you maybe pre-educated them on the business a little bit, you may not have as many coming in, but then you may have a higher percentage that stay in because their reasons for coming in are a little more committed. There. Do you guys discuss that in any way? How can you retain, which obviously would increase your membership and so forth? Is ways to improve that ever been discussed in your 20 years?
We do talk about that a lot. And it's hard because I think our numbers in Florida are unusually inflated because people come here to retire maybe and they have a real estate license, right? But one thing that really is important, we're trying to educate the brokers on the value of educating and really having those hard conversations with potential members up front. I think it starts with the broker, the level of training that they're willing to do and pour into their realtors is going to be first and foremost to see if they're successful or not, right?
Right.
It's hard when you're, bringing in a lot of realtors to give everyone that personal touch. But I think from a broker level, we have to say, all right, we're investing in these people. And then they're representing our brands, not just the Realtor brand, but, whatever company you're with, they're wearing that logo or that name tag on their shirt. And so it's important to make sure that they have that higher level of customer service and training necessary. I would love, and I know this isn't going to happen, but in my perfect world, to be an appraiser, you have a 2-year apprenticeship that's required. Right. I would love to have that requirement for realtors because I really do think, number one, they're going to get deeper training. They're going to be more confident in their ability and they're going to be more professional and ready. But number two, they're also going to say, is this something I really want to do? And so even if we had, some sort of structure where they had a small salary, and then bonuses for things that they sell amongst that 2-year apprenticeship. I do think that a deeper dive in an apprenticeship style would maybe limit the number of people we have coming in, but I think it would retain more people than we currently do.
This is a topic 204 episodes, a topic I've easily had in the high 190s with all the top agents that I've had on. And one of the questions I ask almost religiously on every pod is the importance of that brokerage that these agents are signing up with, because I think you hit it straight on. My whole vision if you take the time and talk to agents, talk to the brokers, but talk to the agents who are in this culture that every brokerage has. They all have their own different ways they're doing business. It's a great thing about real estate because everyone kind of does it a little different.
Yeah.
And matching up with that, and the agents that go to those brokerage and they got a mentor, they got someone they can shadow, they're immediately, plugging them into a system. And because the understanding of the long-term effect of that salesperson, that agent, the longer they stay with your brokerage, hopefully you get better and better and their numbers go up and up. And obviously the brokerage does better. But would you agree or disagree? I think a lot of people get into business and really have a short 90-day vision in front of them. They're not really looking long-term, including some of these brokers who are not thinking long-term and what they're going to invest in that new agent, and kind of have more of a, I don't want to say maybe a negative attitude like, oh, hey, we'll see where they go and then I'll spend some time with them, versus selecting the right person and putting the time and energy into them.
I do believe that. So just me on a personal level within my own brokerage, I probably interview between 30 and 40 people every 6 months. And I only take 2 to 3 on a year. Again, I'm small and I want to be small. That's my style. Mm-hmm. But I take 2 or 3 on that I truly believe, number one, represent my brand well, but number two, have the drive and the ability, and that I know they're going to make it. They're going to make it because they have the will and they have the desire and they have just that raw street smarts and that customer service, the communication skills. You can teach a lot of things. You can't teach a personality, right? And so that's one of those things I look for. And then I pour in 20 weeks of training. So they have 20 weeks of modules of training. And then at the end of that, obviously, we have a good support system. They can ask questions anytime, all of that. But for me, when I leave them at the end of that 20 weeks, I would personally give them one of my customers and feel confident that they would handle that with ease and grace and professionalism. And so, other brokers have the same. There's great training programs everywhere. But what we do have to do is completely tell the brokers it is your responsibility to train these realtors that are coming into your brokerage. Mm-hmm. However you feel that you want to do it, fine, but it is your responsibility as a broker.
That goes right into the importance of the broker that I was trying to get to, and how many of them truly, invest. And if you were talking to, they ask you, hey, here's a bunch of new agents. They're studying for the test. They haven't taken the test yet. They haven't signed up with anything. What would be 2 or 3 things that you would tell them that they need to do to find that right brokerage that they mesh with?
I would tell them to interview several, right? So you might have friends that say, oh, definitely talk to this person or that person. Great. Talk to several. Number one, you have to feel who you mesh with, who you feel represents your culture and who you stand for as a person, right? Number two, what does their training look like? What does their support system look like? And does that align with your needs, right? Based on your experience, maybe you come from another state and you've sold real estate for years, so you need less support. That's okay too, right? There are brokers that can align with that, but figure out what your support level is and mesh with that. Number three, ask questions. Do you have any reviews from customers that I can see? Can I talk to one of the realtors that you've maybe hired in the last year to get their experience? Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Yes, they're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them. It is 100% partnership, because remember, you are your own business, just housed under their brand and their support, but you are your own business.
I remembered the idea that I had this a while back, and it comes from my dad was telling me when my dad was self-employed. He did a couple different businesses, and at the local township that we had in Massachusetts where I grew up, business owners, that would have a panel and you could go to them and talk about, starting, hey, I want to start this business, and they would give you feedback and advice and type of thing, where I was like, that is a brilliant idea for these real estate agents. And it could be just a random rotating board. It doesn't have to be the same people all the time. I mean, you wouldn't want it to be the same people all the time, but the brokers that are participating in the board, where agents, if they want to, or some of our prospective agents, I should say, could come and sit in front of them. And, such as the discussion that you and I are having here, what should you do first? Well, I mean, even the top agents who've been, some of them went to the wrong brokerage at first. Some of them were lucky and have been at the same brokerage the whole time. They just got lucky and everything clicked. Giving them these bits of advice, like go and talk to the agents that are already at that brokerage. What do they feel? Everyone, I think, if there's two things. It's a joke on my podcast is every one of these brokerages will tell you they have great training and great technology. I said, okay, let's take that off the table. Let's talk about everything else.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a fit for every broker and every person, right? Like if you're strong in technology, maybe you don't care if the brokerage has great technology because you've got that handled. You have to figure out, play off your strengths and your weaknesses and find a brokerage that can fill in those gaps of any weakness that you have.
I think Matt Rathman, I've quoted him before. I had him on here back in January before our RE Bar Camp that Kim Knapp put on here in St. Augustine.
What a great event that was.
Yes. Yeah. And Matt said, if you're, I'm almost sure it was Matt that said this, but if your broker's not doing it, is not active. Now, I know some brokers that aren't in production anymore, but they're very involved in what's going on. They're out in front of the NAR settlement. They're very involved at the board. They're getting, so they can bring that information into their brokerages and share with their agents so their agents are up to speed. But, according to Matt, if your broker or your mentor or whatever, who you're following is not, doing video, and that's where a lot of, obviously, that's where all the professionals say hey, that's where you got to get social media and all that stuff. If they're not doing it, you probably want to go somewhere else because they're really not going to be able to give you the true advice. If they're not actively involved in transactions, if they're not doing video or whatever it is that you feel the path that you want to go down.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. And if you bring it to them and you say, hey, this is something I want to do, if they're not doing it and they don't immediately say, I'm not doing that, but let me get you the support that you need so you can be successful. If they're not supporting what you're looking to do, then, maybe it's time for you to figure out what works best for your future.
All right, so we're going to change gears here and we'll kind of finish up a little bit. I don't know if you have to, because of your position, not, openly on an open live stream like we're doing right now, say something because, again, because of your position, but give us a rundown. What should every agent be hearing? I know I get the St. Augustine board's emails and they try to obviously, put it out in the email to keep us abreast of what's going on and with the NAR settlement and so forth. Where is it at now? What should agents be being prepared with? What is, Florida Realtors' position right now, where everyone should be at as far as the settlement is and as far as information of the truth about the settlement?
The settlement is complex, right? There's a lot of intricacies. It's very complex. But what our amazing staff at Florida Realtors, our legal team, Joanna Watkins, we have a great legal team, they deciphered that, right? And they're really working on forms that we need to make sure that we're in compliance. So everything from updated buyer broker agreements to showing agreements to an updated listing agreement, all of those forms are in process so that we are going to be ahead of the curve. They should hopefully be ready by mid-June. Then basically once those forms are released, we're going to immediately hop on a training wheel, right? So we're going to have webinars. We're going to have lots of opportunities for you all to learn about the new forms, the changes, and how to utilize them. But hopefully at that point, if you haven't already, if you're a broker, you're going to get those forms and figure out how you're going to implement and what your process is going to be within your own brokerage. If you're an agent, this is an opportunity for you to reach out to your brokerage and say, okay, how how now are we going to function? What is our process going to look like? Because as you know, we are no longer going to be able to offer compensation within our MLS. So where is that compensation going to be offered from your brokerage? That's a conversation that you can be having right now as well with your broker. If you're a broker, you need to be thinking about how are you going to communicate that, right? Once all of these changes are put into place, you're going to say, why are we doing these changes before the settlement has been approved? Because part of our settlement said that we are going to go ahead and implement changes prior to the approval of the settlements. We believe that the settlement will be approved. Once it's approved, Florida's a little different because if you're not aware, we have a lawsuit in Florida as well, in addition to the National Association of Realtors lawsuit. However, once the settlement is approved, then our lawsuit by way of the settlement should go ahead and go away in Florida, right? That should also conclude when the NAR settlement becomes approved. But we don't know for sure that that will happen until the NAR settlement is finally settled. And then we'll go ahead and put that settlement agreement in front of our judge here in Florida. We believe that it will be, but obviously you don't know until the cook is done, right?
Right.
So then immediately following that, I think you also, while you're learning these new forms, you need to be looking at what does your listing presentations look like? Are you now updating that to have different conversations with sellers about compensation and who they want to compensate, how they want to compensate? And then if you don't have you have listing agreements, right? We've always had listing agreements and listing presentations. If you don't have a buyer presentation right now, that's probably something that you want to consider putting together if you don't have that. Again, to show your value, communicate your value so that when you're explaining to them the way that commissions work, they understand how you're working for them, what you're doing for them, and how you're getting paid, right? So you want to make sure that you're being crystal clear and delivering value to that buyer as well. The idea of the buyer broker agreement, people are very nervous about. And I'm like, it's no different than a listing agreement for a seller. We've been doing that for decades. You just have to retrain your brain that you need an agreement no matter who you're working for, whether it's a seller or a buyer. I would also reach out if you know anyone that's always used buyer broker agreements and say, help me. How are you communicating your value? Or how do you explain the buyer broker agreement? Because I think that there are some brokerages in the state of Florida, not very many, but that have been using them for years, and we can learn from them. Cynthia DeLuca, she's an amazing instructor of ours at Florida Realtors, but she's also a practitioner that has always used buyer broker agreements. I was able to take her ABR class just recently, and I learned so much. She's been operating with buyer broker agreements literally for 30 years. We were able to take some of the ideas and the things that she put into place within my own brokerage. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. This is new territory for everyone, but we do have the best professionals in place to ensure that you have all the tools and resources you're going to need. And we've even amped up our legal hotline because you're going to have questions about forms. You're going to have questions about processes. Remember, as a Florida Realtor, that is a free service for you. It's included in your dues, the Florida Realtor legal hotline, as well as the tech hotline. So if you have any questions tech-wise, remember that is a service included in your dues as well.
To everyone who just listened to what you just said, so we can bring them down off the ceiling. So, my initial reaction, even though I'm not, all these documents, I don't necessarily know every bit of it, but I would imagine a lot of what you just, you're not recreating a new wheel. I mean, there's a spoke that in this wheel that you're adding or improving in this, and they shouldn't panic. You're not changing everything that all these people have been in the business for years have to totally recreate themselves. They should have enough experience to absorb these changes. Would that be a correct statement?
100%. So I told everyone, take a deep breath. This is a change, but this is not altering our profession dramatically. It will foster more communication, I think, and conversation. And you just have to get comfortable with that conversation and what that looks like. But once you master that, I think that you're going to see better communication, more professionalism, and just overall smoother transactions once we get over this hurdle. Change is hard, right? No matter what you do, change is hard. But as soon as we pull off that Band-Aid, I think you're going to see it heal very quickly.
And much like the contract classes, many of the agents that I've had on say you got to continue to go to that and hear it from different people, because different people accent different areas of the contract that they think is more important maybe than others. The buyer's agreement, your listing presentation, go and hear it from some different people and obviously make it your own. Would you agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, honestly, the best form of flattery is taking someone else's idea and making it your own. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you that we are very open about sharing things within Florida Realtors. If you have questions, reach out to a leadership team member. I've shared my listing agreement with I don't even know how many realtors across the state. I have a buyer book that I'm in the middle of updating now. Again, I think that we're only as strong as our weakest link, right? So anything that I can do to help grow someone else and leave the profession better than I found it, I think that we all have a responsibility to collaborate and work together so that we can be the most professional realtors we can for the Floridians buying homes.
What do you think, after getting through that, obviously this whole NAR thing is probably going to last, and obviously the trainings and so forth well into 2025. Knowing what you know behind the scenes in the greater vision of real estate, even on a national basis, let alone the large state as far as a realtor organization, but future challenges that we may be having that, the 2025, 2026 board will be considering, what kind of challenges do you see in Florida real estate going ahead, that the importance of Florida Realtor being involved is going to be vital?
I think that we may have a decrease overall in membership, not from a Florida Realtor or an NAR standpoint per se, like not because of settlements or anything like that. But I think that overall realtors, we're at a progressive age and we're not getting as many young realtors as we have older realtors exiting the business. And so I think that we are going to see a decrease in realtor population overall over the next couple of years. So that will be a difference. Right now we're growing still. I mean, last year we anticipated that we would have a little bit of a fall off just because of the higher interest rates, because of the lawsuits, everything going on, lots of uncertainty. Right. We did not in Florida. We increased.
Interesting.
So we do think that. We still think that insurance is going to be a huge issue for affordability. I will say workforce housing and affordability is at a crisis nationwide. Definitely in Florida, but nationwide, it's a crisis for us. So we are going to have to figure that out. And what that looks like, I don't know. I just had an opportunity.
I was going to ask your opinion on that. What would be Gia? If Gia had a magic wand or was in control of it all, what would she do?
I think that affordable housing or workforce housing is different for all people. I think that if we were able to loosen up a little bit of our building guidelines, maybe we could have a more of not a tiny home, but a more condensed home situation. I just had an opportunity to go to FIAPSI, which is an international real estate conference where we looked at projects from all over the world. And it was in Singapore, which was interesting. Wow. But one thing
right there.
yeah, like 26 hours. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But one of the things we learned is that they've loosened their building guidelines and they're having something now called pod parks. So imagine like the pod moving situation. Mm-hmm. It's container home parks that people are building 2-bedroom, 1-bath container home build outs that are portable. It's crazy. I mean, right. It's like a mobile home park, but a pod park. So that was one thing. Another thing that we learned in Singapore, 90% of the housing is subsidized. And when I say subsidized, not rental, how we might think of it in the United States.
Right.
The government actually builds it and then sells it to workforce housing at a reduction so that there are people that can live where they work, which was a concept I'd never heard of. Instead of, I don't know that that's the right answer for us, but I think that we have to look at all opportunities to ensure that people in Florida can live where they work. They basically took their FHA, their down payment assistance programs, and they said, could we build or repurpose homes right now and then sell them to our workforce housing for our costs?
Right.
And they were able to do that, which was pretty huge.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a lot of things that have to come into play, right? Lower insurance rates, maybe some lower building code situations for maybe a tiny home situation like that. The septic tanks, especially in North Florida, are an issue. I've been hearing about that. I just left Dixie, Gilchrist, Levy County, and they have a huge issue with trying to sell a lot to put a mobile home on. And the cost of the septic tank is going to be twice what the cost of the lot is.
Right.
Well, that's a problem. We need to look at that regulation and figure out how we can make that more affordable for that sector. I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I think that we need to look across several topics and see what we can do to increase workforce housing. Hometown Heroes obviously was a huge win for us.
Right. No, I was on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee in St. Johns County for years. I gave it because my office kind of moved further north and to keep going down there. But one of the challenges there was, like bringing the public utilities to these lots. And, because you're talking, if the public utilities there and they could just tap into the water line, they could tap into the sewer system, you're talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in savings versus that homeowner having to go in there, build that septic, build the well, go through all the permitting and all the things that need to be done to have that kind of stuff on there versus just simply tapping into the county's lines that are supplied there. It is a, depending on where you're at, and sometimes it could be just little things like that. But would you agree there takes some political courage for some of these things to be made, because somebody somewhere down the line has to take a stand, and it may have to start with the governor because he's, versus that local politician who wants to make a stand. He's outcasted because, we're going to bring lower cost housing in there. It's going to be a different population, going to our schools. I know everyone wants to build a fence around their little area there and don't want to let anybody else in. And where someone's going to have to have the political courage to kind of make a stand and start moving this in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree, for sure. We all have that whole NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard situation. And we're going to have to look at what makes sense for our states, what we can do. But we're pricing people out right and left.
Yeah.
People are continuing to move further and further and further out of city centers. And then what does that look like when we're trying to get people that are able to work in restaurants and work in, the dry cleaners, all those different things? Yeah. We're not going to have workforce for jobs that we need.
And when you add, obviously, the cost of fuel, the cost of cars, you're driving that distance, let alone the fast food joint in between. You got to stop and get something to eat. I mean, then all of a sudden that affordable house is not affordable anymore when you realize what is entailed in going back and forth there. The one question I had, we talked about Tallahassee, but I wanted to circle back from a national basis. You guys are up in DC. What are some of the things that Florida is trying to get done on a national, or where the federal government has to kind of get involved?
So we've been talking to them about affordable housing as well. I think that that's always an issue, like what programs can be put in place at a national level. We are always huge on property taxes as well. Now, understand that that's governed by the state. However, there is some national influence on that. Foreign buyers, that was another huge topic of conversation that we had in Tallahassee. And what does that look like? And we want to make sure that everyone has access to buy homes within our state and within our country. And so we don't want regulations on people that are able to purchase, making sure that everyone has the opportunity for home ownership and the right counseling financially as well. If someone doesn't have the right credit, what programs can we get them in or get in place to ensure that we're helping them build credit and longevity so that they're able to be in a position to purchase? There's so many things that go with home ownership. They say that if you own a home, you're going to have overall a lower crime rate. You're going to have higher graduation rates amongst your children. You're going to be more invested in your community. There are so many positives that come with homeownership that we're really taking that stance in Tallahassee to help ensure that everyone has that opportunity if they want it.
I'm going to finish with this, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity if there's anything you want to add in here. Florida Realtors, talking to, Cindy Hayden, talking to Kim Knapp, and others that I've had on the show from around the state, has a tremendous amount of services when you're a member that they offer. Forewarn, obviously being one of them. What do you, with all this, there, I understand there's an IT team there to help you with your technology, getting a printer hooked up or whatever. You guys have this support staff. What are some services that maybe some of the agents who might be listening to this don't realize that Florida Realtors has, and they just haven't tapped into it as part of their membership?
So yes, legal hotline for sure. I'm a regular on there. Tech hotline. I tell them, take over my computer. I don't even want to know how you fixed it. Just fix it. But SunStats, I think that is a powerful one that's underutilized. SunStats, it's our research department. So as a realtor, if you were to go to try to compile research, you can drill down to zip code or service area. So like in Gainesville, I'm in Gainesville, for example, I could search home stats for Gainesville. I can also search home stats for 32607, which happens to be my zip code. But why this is important is it'll drill down by zip code. It will brand it to you as the realtor, put it in a beautiful infographic or in a bar chart, and you can go in there and you can really research not just your area, but maybe there's another zip code that you're interested in trying to gain market share on. You can go into there and always be up to speed on what's happening in those areas. If you were to pay for that service on your own, it would be astronomical, the cost. And our chief economist, Brad O'Connor, he does a once a month update, also teaching you how to interpret the statistics and spin it so that you can explain it to your customer effectively. So if you're not watching those videos on floridarealtors.org, definitely do. The other service
on their YouTube site as well. Am I not?
Yep. It's on their YouTube site. Definitely. The other service that I absolutely love is our Take 5 videos. So as a realtor, I'm always looking at ways to brush up my skills, something I can bring to my office meetings as a broker. We have hundreds of videos that are called Take 5 series, and it's a 5-minute video to teach you about something. Maybe it's the way to help effective pricing of a new listing. Maybe it's the best ways to communicate with your customers to wow them. Maybe it's 5 minutes on to create the most memorable video. But we have area content experts teaching a video to help you. So 5 minutes, we all have 5 minutes. We can brush up on our skills and utilize something. Yep. So I love the Take 5 series as well. Our forms, if you're not utilizing Form Simplicity, some brokerages have their own software, which is fine. But if not, we have Form Simplicity that's also available to you as a member. And that has all of our forms, all of our e-signatures, all of that available. So that's huge. What else do I love? If you're not reading the magazine, I know that everyone says print is dead. It's a digital magazine as well. I will tell you that we've won more awards. Don't tell Real NAR this, but our magazine's better than the Realtor magazine every day of the week. So the content in there and the relevancy is huge. There always is something that I have a takeaway every single month in there. So definitely utilize that if you're not. There are just so many things that I love.
The SunStats thing. I think it's good. I think Kim Knapp kind of showed me a little taste of that. Yeah. What that can do. And I see, so a lot of these agents are looking for content for their social media. And if I'm not mistaken, it will create a Facebook for you with whatever stats. Can you just quickly give 3 or 4 things that you stats that you like to look at, when you're pulling up zip codes or maybe going to that buyer or seller's consultation? What are some of those things you pull off that you think is important that SunStats gives you?
So average days on the market is one I always do. List to sale price ratio, which I think is huge when you're talking to sellers. They still think in their brain that we're going to have multiple offers in 3 days. And although it's still a strong market, we're not there anymore. And so showing them that the list to sale price ratio continued to taper down slightly, I think is huge. I also like the number of units closed in that zip code versus number of active listings. So that's another thing that everyone will say, oh, things are flying off the market. Well, you can see that there were 115 active listings, right, and 63 of those closed. So how many are still available and why are those available? Right. So there, you can customize it however you want. I think there's like 26 different metrics that you could choose from to have on your specific SunStats presentation. But I think that it's huge. It really is a huge opportunity for us to set ourselves up as the experts. When you go to a party and someone says, how's the market? And you're like, oh, it's really great. Instead, you can say, in our area, it's a 97% list to sale price ratio, average days on the market of 39. Right. You sound so much more educated.
Right. No, 100%. I think when I saw Kim demonstrate that to me, I said, these agents, do they even know this is available to them? Because I was like, I see them post a lot of stuff from other places I know they're paying for. That is such just one valuable tool in your toolbox there at Florida Realtor.
And Photify does the same thing. It creates social media content for you free. If you're a Florida Realtor, you have access to Photify, and it's everything, all the content that Florida Realtors has. But that's a great opportunity. It's Photify, Photofy. Excellent.
Gia, is there anything you'd like to add here as we finish up?
I just appreciate the opportunity, and our leadership team, we want to be a resource. We want to be an open book. We encourage you, if you have concerns, questions, things you'd like to see happen, reach out to us. We are here to serve you. We are volunteer leaders that happen to be practitioners, and our job is to leave it better than we found it. So help us do that.
Well, there's no doubt, Florida is a state with probably more challenges than the average state, and with more people coming in, it just exposes more challenges, and to have great leadership that you have there, and obviously led up by yourself. These are challenging times, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, but not things that we can't overcome with great leaders like yourself.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to serve and look forward to the changes in the year ahead for sure.
Excellent. Gia, you have a super day. Appreciate you.